So there we were, my good buddy the Falcon and I, in the supermarket. Shelves were bare, no toilet paper to be seen. There was a gang of thugs. They had baseball bats, they had lead pipes, they had wooden planks, and it was just a melee free-for-all, all for the scarce supplies that were left.
I'm sorry, was this in a video game or real life?
It's kind of hard to tell the difference between the two anymore.
The Gaming Lovers Podcast with Brendo and Jem.
My, what a difference a week makes. G'day and welcome to the Gaming Lovers Podcast, episode 98. I'm Jem.
I'm Brendo. The world has gone topsy-turvy, but the gaming lovers are here. We're still playing video games. In fact, it may be encouraged in this current world situation.
Yes.
Look, talk is all about the quarantining at the moment, the self-isolation. We're here to discuss what games we would pick if the need arises that we have to self-isolate. 14 days without leaving the house.
Possibly longer.
For people like us. I'm not going to say it's a dream come true, but look, I'm all for it. If I can get 4 in Feb done, if I have 14 days off, I could try a 4 in 14. How exciting would that be? So we're going to be discussing later on our games of choice of what we have on the roster, maybe which online games we'd choose to get lost in, all sorts of different criteria for which games we would self-isolate with. But before we get there, let us not waste any time in getting to a very productive episode of Gaming Goals. Sing it with me. Goal. Come on, join in. Gaming. Goal. Come on. Don't leave me hanging here. I heard you join in, but it was
I wasn't
so
entirely
quiet.
sure where you're going with it, so I thought I'd let you do a solo.
Okay. It's Gaming Goals.
That it is, and I tell you what.
Tell me what. Please tell me what.
It's been an interesting week, and I think that's kind of changed how I look at some video games now and even some media. I think it's so hard not to see the parallels between what's happening in real life between so many apocalyptic video games.
Yes.
It's a little eerie.
It's amazing how fun it would seem to be in a post-apocalyptic world until you actually have it facing you in the eyes.
Yeah.
Kind of spooky.
Yes, and a little saddening, I think, to see just how quickly humans can turn on each other when they are scared and panicked.
Look, The Walking Dead prepared me for this. I know that the zombies are the least of the worries in any post-apocalyptic thing. It's the humans.
It's always
Let's
the other
all
humans.
band together. No.
It's not just that, though,
No.
but you have some people that seem to go a little crazy and be a bigger threat than, the zombies or the clickers or whatever it is that has sent the world into the panic that it is. That said, on a very serious note, just be sensible, I think, is the main thing to take away. If you need to withdraw and for the protection of other people, even if you're not sick, you could still potentially pass on the illness without realizing it. So being able to stay home, play some video games, not such a bad thing. This week we kind of half self-isolated, especially me being, well, we're both asthmatics technically. So we're kind of in that respiratory illness risk category. And being pregnant, I'm like, I don't want to take any risks. So yeah, we're even more hermits than normal, which means more video games. And part of that has been more Overcooked for us.
More Overcooked. Look, if you and I are spending time home together, at the moment, it's Overcooked time.
Yes.
And I was having a good time with this game, but these DLCs that we have been playing are considerably more difficult than the base game itself. Not uncomfortably so, but there is that frustration creeping back in to my Overcooked 2 experiences.
Not only that, but we actually finally answered a bit of a challenge from Mel and Steve, who, when Overcooked 2 came out at least a year or two ago, they wanted to compete against us because it has the versus mode.
That's right. Normally the gauntlet would be thrown down. In this case, it is the oven mitt was thrown down. The challenge was made, and due to scheduling issues and disinterest to the game from me and not wanting to be shown up and defeated by, how do we put it politely, more casual gamers. We did delay it a fair bit, but look, family bonding time, what could be better for fracturing these relationships than Overcooked 2? Because I was afraid, first of all, that playing against them would bring out the villainous side of me, which, for the record, competitive games had a habit in the past of bringing out my rule bending but not breaking, I'm targeting the weakest link here to win this game by all means within the rules, and I'm happy. And I did that for so long that even when I matured and started to mellow out a bit and have a good time playing games instead of focusing on winning and crushing my opponents, I now get suspicion cast upon me.
Yeah, you're typecast for life.
Everyone thinks I will play villainously, so they target me, and it almost provokes me to fight back. I was afraid that would happen with Overcooked 2 because it is such a high-pressure game that I was worried I would offend the opponents, and more importantly, I was worried I would offend my partner, my wife, my gaming lover, my co-op partner, and that may have happened to a degree.
I feel like I need to say this, though. I'm technically the one who went heel first. There's certain levels in Versus where you have to share bench space. Mm-hmm. So you might be on one side and they're on the other, and you can prepare your meals and serve them without worry, and just it's about skill and who's faster.
Yep.
But if you or they are kind of naive enough to leave either chopped or even finished meals in the shared section, then you can totally steal it.
Look, if I'm walking past and there's a finished smoothie that we need on the bench right next to me.
But you technically stole that from me, because this is like the first few rounds, like we went through and we did every level where it was us versus them, right? And then once we had done all of those, we decided to start mixing it up and randomizing who we partnered with. And occasionally I would end up partnered with my sister Melissa. And when we got to that smoothie level that you just referenced, that was me and Mel versus you and Steve. Look, and you stole straight away. You stole from your wife, from your pregnant wife. You stole. How dare you?
There's no evidence. You didn't see it happen.
I totally
that smoothie just vanished.
I literally put it down, and within a millisecond, you'd picked it up and snatched it away.
Look, were the police called? No. So obviously you didn't take it very serious. Yeah, it was interesting. We started off, how should we say, not firing on all cylinders when it was 2 versus 2. The gaming lovers versus
so rusty.
The in-laws did not go according to plan early on. We lost the first few rounds quite convincingly. But once we hit our stride, to our credit, we did string together quite a few wins.
Yes. I actually don't remember who won overall. I'm probably Mel and Steve by at least 1 or 2.
Look, if that's the case, it's not if you win or lose, it's how you play the game.
Well, we cheated.
But if we won, it's totally about winning. Totally about winning.
The irony is, though, every time I did try to play dirty, we lost badly. So it was kind of like, well, cheaters never prosper, because I just made that worse.
Obviously.
But we did trigger lots of fits of giggles, which made it more fun, I think, in a weird way of being silly and not taking it too serious. Like just going, you know what, let's just have chaos and have fun. It, I think, made the evening a little more memorable.
It was fun. I was worried that we would leave their house with cold shoulders all round. And I wanted them to sign a waiver saying, look, this is not going to be held against me. Any actions that I take during Overcooked 2, our friendship, our relationships will remain intact. Is everyone happy to sign on the dotted line? But probably the highlight for me was when we were doing a practice round on a level that you and I had not played, because not all the DLC is included in the season pass. Thank you. So we hadn't done the smoothies levels or the kebab levels. And so we decided to do the kebab in like a trial run, you and I versus them. And they were just letting us figure out the ingredients and the recipes. and then I might have stolen their water pistol so they couldn't clean their dishes, but they didn't notice for about a minute until they started bickering amongst themselves as to, where's the water pistol? Where did you put the water pistol? And they're like, I don't know, I didn't take it anywhere else. It should be here. And we're just carrying on our merry way after agreeing to actually, let's make this actually a contest. We've figured it out pretty quick, so let's actually just play this one normally. And then they couldn't clean their dishes, so they were kind of screwed. That was amusing, just waiting for them to notice, just casually going, yoink.
Can I just say how much I really very strongly dislike those levels where you have to manually move the platform you're on to get to the different parts of the kitchen? It's so frustrating. I really loathe that mechanic. I will play almost any other level over those levels in Overcooked.
I actually quite like those ones, so I don't know what you're talking about.
No.
The other bit we did play of Overcooked 2 was 4-player cooperative, which is the very definition of too many cooks in the kitchen. And let me tell you, I felt more useless than ever I ever have in my entire gaming catalogue than trying to find a task to do when everyone's already doing what I go to do 3 seconds before I get there. Oh, this one needs flour. Oh, no, someone already put that in there. Oh, I'll clean this. No, the dishes are gone. This needs a fish in. No, that's just gone in. Okay, I'll just run around in circles pretending I'm busy. It was good fun. It was worth the playing, and I'm glad that, from our point of view anyway, that there's no hard feelings.
Well, if we've survived Betrayal House on a Hill Legacy with them, most games we can handle, I think, by this point. So aside from Overcooked, what have you been up to this week? This
week I have been enjoying some more cooperative online sessions of Dead Island, a game that came out in 2011, but it's finally getting its due. It is a great co-op game. I would not recommend it as a single player, which is what I was told, which is why I forgot it existed for years. But playing it cooperatively is very fun. It is larger than we expected. You start off on a dead island, and there's more than just the beach resort area. There's actually a city, and now we're going to somewhere else. And it's just like, my goodness, I didn't expect such mappage in this game. We're having fun. One of the vehicles you try and drive, and the sun visor is permanently down. So you have a viewpoint of like a Ned Kelly style window to peek through between the sun visor and the steering wheel. Why not just move the sun visor? Why not just move the sun visor? It's impossible. There's no button combination to move the sun visor. And yet, trying to drive through the city is hard enough. Try to do it without actually seeing properly is nearly impossible. So I was driving like a grandma in very tight corners. It was disastrous.
Now, I know that you've been playing lots of Yakuza. You finished all the side quest stuff and unlocked Majima's ultimate fighting moveset with that kind of creepy laugh that he does.
The mad dog of Shimano.
Yeah. How was that?
Overpowered. But when I wanted to just charge through this game, I didn't mind a little bit of overpowered. I've made the mistake of playing Yakuza on normal difficulty before with earlier games. I have been playing Yakuza 0 on easy, which sounds shameful, but I don't care. I just want to experience this game and get through it. So when I did the Cabaret Club missions to the extent that it just was all I wanted to play in this game, I beat that entire story arc, which unlocks his ultimate fighting style. And I was very happy about that. And then when I went back to playing as Kiryu, I did the same with the real estate minigame, unlocked the Dragon of Dojima fighting style, and from then on, I had no interest in any other side missions. And so I marched through about 6 or 7 chapters of this game, and I finished it last night. Yakuza 0 is finally done. Let's throw a 1980s Japanese-style party to celebrate. Throw the yen around. It is finitoed, and therefore that means when we get to future gaming goals at the end of this episode, I have a very, very big important decision to make of what to play next. Now, what I do love about these games, they are so manly. I mean, we laugh and joke about the karaoke and the silly, quirky, silly side missions and all the silly business that goes on in the Yakuza games. But when you get to the climax of these stories, shirtless fistfights on rooftops is a must. Everyone's yelling names at each other. When I watch Japanese pro wrestling, for example, if someone's staggered in a corner and someone runs at them, they often yell their name at them. Okada! As they run at them and hit them with the boot or whatever.
Yep.
That happens so much in Yakuza to the point when I greet people from now on, I may just have to yell their name at them. After hearing hours and hours of Majima! And just Kuze! And everyone's just yelling at each other. And I love it. And it's so manly. I feel like I am so masculine right now.
But it seems almost a paradox of the Japan that we know because they're so not loud, especially when we were traveling. Everyone's very polite and kind of quiet. They'll whisper to each other as they're walking around. It's very rare to be around someone that's being loud in Japan unless it's, a foreigner.
Well, not when you're in a blood feud over billions of yen. Then the etiquette goes out the window.
Also, drunk people.
Yes.
That's when the mask or the polite mask comes off and they cut loose. I think there was a few times that you saw people be loud and riotous, but yeah, it was interesting.
Now, two very important points about Yakuza 0 and my experience. First of all, the character Sagawa has the most soft-looking bags under his eyes. I want to touch them. I have no greater desire right now than to touch Sagawa's eye bags.
Like that dog, I can't remember what his name was from the cartoon. I think he was like Hanna-Barbera. He's like a short... Droopy. He had the big bags under his eyes.
Yeah, but they were not rendered in 3D and 1080p. These were, if you look up a picture of Sagawa, he has the most beautiful eye bags.
Okay.
And that's the most important
thing
point.
You've ever commented on in a video game.
The most important point of this game. And secondly, I want to now get a giant back tattoo of the animal that signifies me the most. Some have dragons in this game. Kiryu, just because it's early in his life, he just has the outline. Majima has a big, demon on his back. We've had snakes. We've had koi fish. We've had all sorts of animals that are representative, who cares, of Japanese culture and icons and everything else. What should I get as my giant back tattoo?
Sonic.
Can I get
a hedgehog? A blue hedgehog?
Can I get a cool, actual hedgehog-looking hedgehog?
If you can survive the touch of the needle on your skin without fainting.
Needles.
Okay,
never mind. Let's move on. So that's ultimately... That's ultimately gaming goals for this week. So Yakuza 0 done. Everything is blank on my schedule now. I'll play Dead Island when I get time with the Falcon. But for your good self, What have you been playing this week, my dear Jem?
I have been playing 2 Point Hospital, and it's getting a little weird.
Only now it's getting a little weird.
I got past the hospital with all the earthquakes and have finally moved on.
Well, before you get there, how was the earthquake situation handled? Was it well under control? No?
It's kind of like how this has been handled. The current crisis around the globe has been handled as there's illness happening. We'll be all right. Yeah, they just kind of, there's no preventative measures you can do. You just kind of have to have the earthquakes happen and then hope you've got enough janitors to clean up the mess. But the janitor AI thing is just so flawed. They will walk past debris and go and water a plant.
No. If you've ever seen a real janitor, the less work they do, the better. They didn't see that debris on the floor, I'm sure. I'm sure with the earthquake situation, it was 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, just with the repairing required.
Things need repairing constantly anyway. It's bad, though, when you've got patients that are in the middle of those machines when the earthquakes hit. But anyways, glad to be past that level.
What curveballs has 2 Point Hospital thrown at you now?
Well, that's not the reason that I say that it's gotten weird is not so much the gameplay, is that because of things with the coronavirus now, having people come in and they say, it's a pandemic, this has happened. I'm like, no. It just felt a little bit weird to be simulating hospital scenarios and stuff like that. And sometimes because you haven't got like wards built or you don't have the right staff trained with the right qualifications, you have to send people home. You can't do anything because if they stay in the hospital, they'll die.
We're supposed to have fun playing games.
It kind of, it hit a little bit of a level of, you know what, this feels a little, even though it's like cartoonish and over the top, this still felt too real.
Okay, I'm not saying you're to blame for your poor hospital planning, but...
Truth comes after the but.
Maybe you should have been more prepared for this. That's all I'm saying.
So the new hospital that I've unlocked, I haven't gotten very far, but it's kind of on like a mini island. So it's a bit more isolated than some of the other locations. So each hospital location has a injury or an illness that's kind of linked with it, like a regional specific thing that you have to cater for. So it's a fun game. It's kind of lost its flavor a little bit, I think, because of just current events. I might go back to it a little later on, or if I'm feeling, in kind of one of those moods for some black humor. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky when you try to play something as an escape. The real world suddenly pivots to reflect what you're playing, and then the appeal's sort of gone.
Yep.
Like if The Last of Us 2 came out right now, I don't know if I'd be interested in going straight on it because it's a little too, everything's falling apart, things are a bit dystopian. You don't want that because that's almost what we're at.
Because escapism, the whole point of that is to go to something that is, not like that. You want to go to something that's happy and bright. And that's why, during the Great Depression, there were so many musicals out in the movies because they were a lot of happy stories, a lot of fun songs, anything to distract, which is interesting because you look at movie culture today and we have a lot of superhero movies, so you could say we have a bit of that going on now too. We want to be rescued from what's going on.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So what it sounds like is I've completely finished a game. You might need a break from your current game. Our gaming goals for the future is going to be very interesting.
Yes.
At the end of this episode, we've got some big choices to make.
Share the love. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Gaming Lovers.
So I wonder how many people are going around actually recording, audio logs of their time in isolation as they slowly go mad. Because how else are the people that come after us supposed to know what happened, and get the trophy for finding all the audio files?
I liked that tweet. Anyone who follows me on Twitter will understand that joke.
Yes. Or anyone who's played a video game.
Itchy Tasty. It's a Resident Evil 1 reference. There was a zombie journal and the man recorded his descent into madness, and the last entry is Itchy Tasty. So that's all there is left for us is Itchy Tasty.
It has reminded me quite a bit of Mass Effect 2. When you go to Omega and they have that quarantined section when you go to get Morden Solus, and quite a few of the alien species have this virus, but it doesn't impact humans. So it's safe for you to go in, but you see all of these like Turians and Batarians that are like coughing and sick, and some have been locked into their houses forcibly and stuff like that. So a lot of the audio logs that are left behind where they don't believe the virus is real and then, oh no, I have a cough. Like all those audio files that you find as you're exploring it. So I feel like we need to do that, just in case.
I have heard that dogs are not catching the coronavirus.
Well, that's good.
So I believe this is all part of their plan. That's the theory I'm subscribing to.
It's not man-made, it's dog-made.
That's right. They are using this to ascend to the top of the intellectual food chain, and we're probably going to be bowing down to a king chihuahua within weeks. Now, we have very different work environments.
Yes.
And as people are trying to work from home as much as they can, you're ahead of the curve as
I've been
far
doing
as
that
goes.
for years.
So your work, not so much impacted your daily life. If there
I live in isolation most days.
By choice.
Yes.
By choice. But if there are more restrictions and you cannot leave the house, that could still potentially shake up your schedule
It
on
just
a week-to-week
impacts
basis.
my food rations, really. And also, when I want certain things for cravings, I guess with this pregnancy, that's going to be limited. So, I mean, there are worse things. I'm not going to complain about being cut off from donuts.
Interesting choice.
I'm just trying to think of a common thing that is a craving, but yeah, it could be a lot worse. So the idea of having a lot of time in your house, I'm very used to that routine. I think it's going to be harder for you. I think you would enjoy it maybe for a couple of weeks, but if it's stretched out for, some countries have been in lockdown for already over a month already.
Yeah.
So if it does hit those levels here in Australia, then I wonder how you'd cope. Although I do wonder if you would have that on your job, because you have what is considered, a critical job that's still important even when everything else is falling apart.
Yes. The good and bad side of it is that as a train driver
Yep.
in Melbourne, Australia, it is an essential service,
Yep.
which means when everyone else can just work from home and everyone else can just sort of not show up to work, I kind of have to, which is good for keeping the money coming in, but not so good because who do I interact with? Hundreds and thousands of people on every day,
Yes.
breathing the same air within the train, facing people on platforms. It's going to be an interesting few weeks, but if it comes down to it and the spread is not contained, and there is a high chance with my job that I could end up with a case of the coronavirus. Who knows? If that was the case and I had to go into isolation, I was thinking this week, how would I spend that time? And in more of a fun activity, we're going to say if we had to be locked down, even potentially just in one room of the house with only some video games, or potentially only one video game to keep you occupied for 2 straight weeks with nothing else to do, eat, sleep, poop, games. That's all you're allowed to do. What would we pick? And it got my mind working in about 20 different directions. So we're here to sort of talk this out a little bit. Does anything come to mind immediately for you?
There's so many that come to mind for me. It's kind of hard to choose. This is where I feel like role-playing games really shine because they are so long and there's so many extra side bits you can do that some people skip over because it makes the game too long. If you were stuck in isolation though and you were trying to pad out the time, this is where you go to games like that and say, okay, keep me entertained. Give me busy work.
When I'm looking at my backlog, half the time I just get depressed because I'm like, I just want to get through these games. That game's 60 hours long. That game's 80 hours long. That game's 120 hours long. I don't have time to do all these games. So I think, personally, because I like a challenge, I would set a 4 in Feb style thing. I joked about it earlier, but I would try and punch through some of these backlog games that I have stacked up because I have Trails of Cold Steel 3.
Yep.
A Japanese RPG that should take well over 100 hours
Easily.
to get through. I've got other games like Yakuza 6, Kingdom Hearts 3, Death Stranding. They're all on the nominated list for me to actually play now. But then there's other games that I look at and I'm like, you are just too difficult. And I don't know if I have the time to invest like you, Dark Souls 2, sitting there looking at me. And maybe that's just the sort of game I would need in a quarantine, isolation style environment because you will start ticking down the days. Once you get past that fun, this is great. I'm playing games for like 2 days straight. This is amazing. You're going to want to start ticking those off. So the more time you sort of waste, the better. And with a game like a Dark Souls 2, you don't make much progress and it does feel like I've played for 3 hours and I've achieved what should be able to be done in 12 minutes. What a waste of time.
I feel like this could be a golden opportunity to get really stuck into an online MMO.
That's a very good point.
World of Warcraft, baby. Like, start from the beginning and, those 2 weeks you will barely made a dent.
Are there any MMORPGs that would capture Jem of the gaming lover's attention?
Maybe like Elder Scrolls, that kind of style. I've started things like Skyrim before. I've never finished Skyrim. Skyrim would be a good choice for me because, so many people will say if you got stuck on a desert island but you still had electricity and, a TV and da-da-da, that Skyrim would be the one game that you could take with you and play for a long time. I think someone said that there's easily over 200 hours or something just in Skyrim. Mm-hmm. So you compare that to the Elder Scrolls Online, which is way bigger. And you've got the online interactivity, so you wouldn't feel as cut off. I think you could still hang out with friends, but online, this is probably where gaming online and meeting up with friends online is a really big plus because we're called to have that, social distancing for everyone's safety.
It would be perfect for online gaming.
Yeah, totally.
I primarily only play online with my good buddy the Falcon. Mm-hmm. If our schedules are not lining up well enough, or if one of us is sick but has some free time, we don't want to hang out together face to face on the couch next to each other. I don't know why you'd sit on a couch looking face to face at each other. It's kind of awkward. But if we were playing a game together, like we've been doing with Dead Island, getting the chance to have a blank 24-hour schedule, for me, who work such irregular hours, would again be a welcome silver lining in what would be an uncomfortable situation. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the Elder Scrolls Online is a good one. Personally, that's just it. I don't like to invest too much time into one game. If you've kept track of this podcast, if I get stuck on a game for multiple weeks because it's so long, I start to get antsy that I feel like I'm missing out other games. And I love such a wide variety of games that I don't like to sit on one game for too long. Mm-hmm. So MMORPGs have not been what I've wanted to try, but games like Star Wars The Old Republic, Final Fantasy XIV, there's Neverwinter, which is a D&D online MMORPG.
Fallout 76.
I'm not going to get that desperate. There'll be no Fallout 76.
And we saw Anthem for $2 the other day.
Still not worth the price. Wait until it's on sale. So there are lots of options, and those are the perfect type of games to dive into for weeks at a time. So if needed, and you needed something to take your mind off, like we said, virtual reality can be the most immersive escapism as you can possibly find. But video games themselves, even though you're looking at a screen, sitting in a chair, playing a game, hours fly by.
Totally.
Hours fly by. So one other question is, if you could only replay a single game that you've already experienced once, at least once, and you can only play one single game.
Single game?
Nothing new, nothing on the backlog, nothing that you go out and buy for this exact situation. What would you do? What would you choose from your gaming history if you could play one single game?
When you say single game.
Single game.
What if something's like
single game?
A trilogy and it kind of rolls from one into another?
Single game.
I have had the itch though to go back and play my old favorites. But if I was going to choose just one, I would go for the one with the most, I guess, meat. And that would be Dragon Age Inquisition. Which is kind of funny because I'm not the only one who's been thinking that recently. I was just having that as I woke up. I'm like, oh, Inquisition, yeah, that feels like a really good game. And that's would be kind of perfect right now with everything going on. Because it's got so much you can do and a lot of challenges. I still have plenty of trophies I haven't popped yet because they've added like some super tough ones. Yep. Then I was on Twitter just scrolling through and Corey Barlog, the director of God of War, has gone back to his gameplay of Dragon Age Inquisition. So it feels like I'm like, yes, I'm on the same wavelength.
Yeah, sometimes it just takes that one tweet, someone mentioning a game, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go play that.
Because it's a good game, and there's so many diverse paths you can take. So even though I've played it several times, there are playthroughs that I started of different, races and genders and, I guess, battle classes, whether it be, warrior, rogue, or mage.
Mm-hmm.
And they all, change how you interact with the world quite a bit. So there are technically things I still have yet to experience in that game, and that's why it's a good game to go back to.
Yep.
And I definitely get my money's worth when it comes to those games. I've replayed them so many times already. So I just don't get sick of those.
Yeah. I've been trying to think about this. If there's a game that I've already played, already beaten, and I was only allowed to choose from something like that to keep myself entertained for as long as possible, I probably would pick Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, because when I played that, I was sort of on a mission to charge through it. Mm-hmm. And I've seen articles and videos and anecdotal stories that people have explained what they experienced in that game. There's a town that the more you do in the game, the more it develops, and I didn't even know about that. And there's all these sorts of little things that I've left out. The world is enormous. There's plenty to just explore. And so similar to Skyrim, where you can just choose a direction and walk and you'll find something to do. Mm-hmm. That's what I think. If I had to choose one game, there's lots of games that I would love to just spend the time to replay. But if I had to pick one game to actually dig into and maybe get what I should have got out of it the first time, and again, maybe it's because WWE's Paige said that she's addicted to Breath of the Wild recently, and that sort of triggered it in my brain to go, I want to play it. I want to play it.
So susceptible to suggestion.
Yeah.
One thing that I have been heavily considering, though, recently is Persona. That Persona series, especially with Persona 5 Royal coming out, which we have pre-ordered. We don't do very often. And now part of me is worried that we won't be allowed to go pick it up.
Oh, no.
I'm like, no. We should have saved our money for a digital purchase. We will see. It's not like...
If it comes down to that, I'm sure we can make some arrangements.
I can get a refund for our pre-order, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Persona games, they are very long.
Yes.
If you want to get everything out of those, they take a lot of time.
Definitely.
And they are among our favourites.
And if you want to do trophy hunting, you have to do New Game Plus. So there is repeat gameplay things, and it's not like they are JRPGs. They're not quite as diverse as far as making different choices. You don't quite get... There are some different endings, but you've always got the true ending with those kind of games. Yep. So it's not quite the same as playing some Western RPGs. Likewise, you've got an already fully formed kind of protagonist. So it's kind of adventure game mixed with RPG-esque style things. So... But that said, there's still copious amounts of hours you can pour into those games.
Yeah. I like this sort of desert island, you're trapped on a desert island. Somehow you have TV and
all this power.
And a fridge and a toilet and everything else you could need, but nothing communication-wise. Yeah, it's always been like one of those fantasy things, but now with this situation, it is kind of interesting. I wonder... in a sort of a related note, this has just come to my head now. What game do you think you have put the single most hours into ever out of any other game?
I'm not sure which one wins. It's either Dragon Age Origins or Mass Effect 2.
Okay. My first thought was that can't be right, because a playthrough of Mass Effect 2 takes about 60 hours if you do everything, which you always do.
I always do.
And then I've just run the numbers in my head of how many times I've seen you over the years play Mass Effect 2.
Yes.
We're in multiple hundreds of hours.
I mean, I've played Mass Effect 3 a lot as well, but sometimes I don't finish it because I get to a certain point, I'm like, I don't want it to end. It will end here in my head. And I don't play Mass Effect 1 as much because the controls and the repetitive maps are frustrating, so it's only something I replay maybe once a year instead of multiple times, and now it's sounding really bad at how how much I play number 2. I love that game. But I do replay Dragon Age quite a bit as well because you've got all those different origins. There were still trophies and things that I was hunting for. Like, I still haven't popped one for having every single party member possible that you can have. For those who have played the game and know what I'm talking about, I think you've popped that, but I haven't. Because sometimes I just get to a place where I want to replay, but I always replay it the exact same way. There's this meme.
Where's the variety?
Who
needs branching storylines and hard choices?
With the guys from American Shoppers, and you got the guy with like the big handlebar mustache.
Now I know the big mustache.
And they're yelling at each other back and forth, and then when guy picks up a chair and throws it down. There's one that sums up me perfectly, where the guy with the mustache says, "I'm playing the Dragon Age trilogy," and the guy with the hat's like, "You've already played it 100 times," and then the guy's like, "But there's still dialogue and romance options I haven't seen," and the guy with the hat throws the chair and says, "But you always play the same way." And then the guy with the handlebar mustache is like, "But I might not this time."
Oh, but you will.
But
you.
It's just, that pretty much wraps me up. I'm like, oh, yeah, maybe I'll do it differently. And then I start creating my character and I go, no, I don't want to. I want to play how I like it.
Make Grum's evil brother.
Evil brother.
Grim.
But Grum was pretty evil.
Exactly. It was fun to play that way. Try it for something different. For me, when it comes to the game I've put the most hours into, my default answer has always been the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind.
Yes.
Because that came out and I was playing that relentlessly, multiple hours every day for months on end because I was unemployed and not doing much with my life at the time. So I had multiple 300-hour playthroughs, and I don't think anything realistically has gotten close to that. I've played 100-hour games, but nothing to that degree because I was just in love with that game, and it has not aged all that well. So I don't think that was what I was going to go back to if I had to self-quarantine and choose a game that I have already enjoyed.
So right now, if we had a big notice from the government and they said, stay in your houses, don't you dare leave, what would you jump to go play immediately?
It's tricky. The schedule has opened up. It's probably just still going to sit in the realm of the games that I've wanted to play and have been looking at me from a backlog. So I do like to play new games that I haven't played yet because I just can't not spend money on video games. So with the world as it is now and delivery services going through the roof as far as their popularity, somebody has to deliver the cargo. And who better than Norman Reedus? Because I think if it is as big a game that I can just sit down and play for hours on end, as I expect it to be, Death Stranding would help kill quite a bit of time.
And it could do with some baby training as well.
Very important.
It's interesting. I think someone tweeted that there was a bit of a comparison to Death Stranding and our current circumstances of everyone getting things delivered, people not wanting to greet the delivery man in person but showing up in holographic form instead. That would be nice.
There was a case where, because of air quality being so bad, a man made a Death Stranding baby capsule to carry on him with air tubes.
Wow.
To keep baby's air pleasant. I don't know where that was exactly. It was a quick little skim on Twitter, but interesting anyway.
We definitely needed that earlier this year. Gosh, Australia's had an interesting year.
Yes, very interesting. It has not been the 2020 we expected it to be.
No.
Come back 2019. We will apologise for the harsh things we said to you. But, I mean, the three main contenders I would have right here, right now, would be Death Stranding, Kingdom Hearts 3 at long bloody last, or Yakuza 6. Two of those, Kingdom Hearts 3, Yakuza 6, will be finishing, quote-unquote, great epic sagas that I've worked through over years, as I've played 5, 6 Yakuza games, because there was a 0 as well. The numbers didn't line up in my head. But then they have also made more in Japan, so I haven't quite finished the saga, but it would feel like I'd finished the saga.
Yep.
Kingdom Hearts 3 I've been working on since Mickey Mouse was invented. But Death Stranding, I love me some Kojima. And it's going to be one of those three. In Future Tense Gaming Goals, I have to make a choice.
Yes.
But I could easily roll from one of those to the other or alternate them, and it would be plenty to keep me occupied if required to self-isolate.
Fun times.
And yourself?
Oh.
What would you jump on right now?
I think I'd want something comforting. So one of my old favourites that
Dark Souls 2.
Yes, exactly the type of game that I really gravitate towards is Dark Souls. Yeah, I'm a real masochist. I think I would probably restart either Mass Effect or Dragon Age. Probably Dragon Age. I think I redid Mass Effect more recently. But there are some things on my backlog too that I want to play, from The Outer Worlds to The Witcher 3, and those would
That's
be
a good
really
one.
good, lengthy games.
That is lengthy. There was a guy recently who had racked up 1,800 hours playing The Witcher 3, which
There you
blows
go.
my Morrowind stat out of the water.
Didn't we have a friend who played like a ridiculous amount of hours in Horizon Zero Dawn? Like, they'd done everything, but they just enjoyed exploring, so they just kept running around the map, even though they'd beaten the game.
My good buddy the Falcon had played one of the Battlefield games. I used to just keep track of his stats online. And as I jumped from game to game to game to game, week by week by week by week, he played nothing but Battlefield for like 2.5 years.
Yep.
And that was pretty much it, unless we were hanging out. And he had like thousands of hours racked up in that. And it just blows my mind that, I mean, it's doable.
Yeah.
If we have to lock down for years, it's doable.
I think gamers will cope better than most, truly.
I found it so funny when the quarantines first started here in Australia and people were getting flown to Christmas Island or whichever island it was. I think it's Christmas Island.
Christmas Island.
Within like 5 days, they're saying, oh, we're going crazy. There's nothing to do. And I'm like, tell you what, 14 weeks away from driving trains, I'd be happy. Let me do it in your stead. But I think I'm primarily an introvert. As goofy as I can be in certain environments, I think I'd handle a quarantine better than most. And
I think because it's like when you lose power in your house and you don't know when it's coming back, you get antsy because you don't know when it's going to end.
Yep.
You know, and you try to keep yourself occupied, but part of you wants it to end. And even if it doesn't change how you do anything in your daily routine, there's something about the not knowing and being forced into a situation, whether you like it or not, that makes it harder to cope with where you're at. So I think it's a psychological game more than anything, of getting past that of if you can try to forget the fact. I mean, there are probably some people now that are in those situations that are in quarantine that are maybe turning to different things like podcasts and stuff to help pass the time.
Yep.
You know, keep busy, keep your mind sharp. Maybe now is a good time to learn a new language. You know, use the time that you have to maybe get better in the kitchen.
How many times have you uttered to yourself, I don't have time to learn this, to do this, to experience this? Now's the chance.
Definitely. I
And
mean, try to find those silver linings.
when you said something about when the power goes out, all right, if video games are off the menu, this is the Gaming Lovers podcast, obviously.
That would suck.
If power is out indefinitely, what is your go-to hobby sans power?
So without power, I like reading. I love reading. You just hope that you've got either enough candle or torch light to last. Ultimately, I think it's about trying to be maybe productive, even in the midst of feeling like you're stuck where you are. So, and sometimes video games are great. You know, they give you that slightly false sense of accomplishment of getting things achieved.
I'm sure people are going to be getting through their Netflix backlogs as well.
Yes.
Streaming services, I'm sure, will get a boost in subscriptions.
Disney Plus, I believe, is releasing Frozen 2 3 months early. So that will help. for like a couple of hours. I would love if they also released a few other stuff early. That would be nice. But I would love other things too, like games that are supposed to come out. If they came out now, then we don't have to wait that long. That would be nice. Persona 5 Royal or Animal Crossing and Doom. Everyone's begging for them to come out a little bit earlier to make it bearable and us more willing to be in self-isolation.
Yeah, the more gamers that are sitting on their couch, the less things will spread.
Totally.
Is that right?
Hopefully.
Remember to wash those hands before handing the controller over.
Absolutely. We'll be back with more on how this virus is impacting the gaming community right after this.
You're listening to the Gaming Lovers Podcast. Want to join the conversation? Visit thegaminglovers.com. Record your comment or question by clicking on the button on the right-hand side, and you could be featured in the next podcast.
It's been a hectic week in the news as far as how the coronavirus is impacting the world globally. I mean, there are a lot of very serious things that it has caused, lockdowns and travel bans and so many other things. The petty side of me is really quite sad that E3 is obviously cancelled.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic because we've never had, on a global scale, so many things cancelled.
Yes.
So many things postponed. Mm-hmm. And everyone and their dog, their naughty dog, everyone and their naughty dog working on their new games. It was a joke.
I know.
Working on their new games to reveal at E3, and suddenly that platform's gone.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's going to be lots more Nintendo Direct style video presentations, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Those are much more controlled and less awkward when it comes to technical malfunctions.
Yes.
But it does mean we lose the spontaneity of a "you're breathtaking."
Yeah, those kind of meme moments.
Aww.
They can still happen with the pre-records. You never know. They might choose to do a live stream, in which case there's still fumbles that can be made.
Yep.
Microsoft has said that they are going to do a digital presentation, that they want to make sure that all the hard work of all, both those in their studio and the developers that they support, will get the highlight still. Mm-hmm. So you kind of feel sorry for, I guess, some of the smaller brands or people that were planning on being able to showcase it in person so people could get their hands on and play it.
Yeah.
Like, there's just so many little facets that this impacts.
Yeah. The big studios will be fine. Microsoft, Sony, they'll all be fine. Nintendo will be fine. Everyone will be fine. It's the little indie studios. If you are thinking about getting a game made by an indie studio, but you've put it off, now might be the time to pull the trigger, buy a silly little multiplayer game, buy something for a few dollars that will help support and keep the lights on at those smaller studios during this weird time.
I remember reading too, I can't remember who said it now, but a way to support businesses just in general, if they have things like gift cards, ways that you are kind of almost giving them money early. It's kind of like a pre-order, I guess. You're giving them money early. You'll still get an item later, hopefully when some of this madness ebbs, and help keep businesses and the economy globally afloat.
So you heard it here. Buy video games, buy each other gifts, and keep everyone happy.
Yeah. I know quite a few people were worried about video games getting delayed again even further. So many have been delayed already this year.
This is just the universe preventing Final Fantasy VII Remake from ever seeing the light of day.
You think of how many movies have been, halted, whether they're in pre-production, production, or in the editing process. So many things around the world are kind of just slowing down or shutting down altogether. Mm-hmm. And the same goes for video games. Now, here in Australia, it's been announced that you can't have public mass gatherings of 500 people or more. Mm-hmm. So, 499 is okay, apparently.
Might still be a bit risky.
I think even smaller groups are still risky. But it means, obviously a lot of big conventions and events have had to be cancelled. And that's impacting a lot of gaming conventions and tournaments especially for the fighting game community. I know that that's having quite a ripple effect there too.
Mm-hmm. Esports just picking up its steam, and suddenly there can be no esport events with big crowds.
I still think there is a way to do esports though, because it is a digital sport. If people logged on, like you had the teams maybe in special rooms away from everything, and it was just, done online, broadcast online, kind of like how wrestling events at the moment are performing in empty arenas without any crowds and just putting on the show. So that way people can still watch online and on TV around the world.
Mm-hmm.
They're still getting their entertainment, but they're not risking and forcing people to sit really like close quarters to each other.
Yeah, but the negative side of that is it does lack the energy and lack the excitement. And the whole point of esports these days is to play it in sport
Big
arenas.
Yeah, I know. But people still enjoy watching gaming happen online and watching competitions online.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it would be a huge dent to the industry to do that for a while. It could keep the momentum going. It means people can still compete. And those of us who are, whether we're quarantined or not, can still enjoy what's happening and around the world. That's just me putting my 2 cents in. For every problem, there is a solution.
Well, you and I still have one problem that has yet to get its official solution. What are we going to be starting after beating our big games?
What indeed? Decisions.
Share the love. Follow us on Twitter at Brendo Jem. That's BRENDOJEM.
So now it's time for future tense gaming goals. What do we intend on starting? Because normally this is just how we continuing to play. What goals are we setting in that game? But we've both decided to start something new this week.
Yes.
So what is it going to be?
I don't know.
That's the tough bit. Are you like me after you beat a game?
Well,
Do you sort of sit there awkwardly and go, do I start something? Should I start it now? Should I start it after lunch? Should I start it when Jem's sitting next to me? What do I do? It's confusing. I turned on the PlayStation this morning, sat and looked at my menu for 10 minutes, then turned it off and cleaned the kitchen because I just didn't know what to play. I was confused as to what to start playing.
Yeah, it's difficult when you have finished something big, but I technically haven't finished 2 Point Hospital. Not that I don't know if you ever really can.
You're taking a break.
I'm taking a break.
You're
it just
seeing
felt
other
weird.
games.
I need some space. 2 Point Hospital, it's getting a little too real.
It's not me, it's you.
Oh.
So would you like to start then? What would you like to start this week?
Oh, that's just it. I'm torn between going and looking at my backlog and playing and starting something fresh and new, or going to something comfortable and familiar, kind of like putting on really comfortable, tracksuit pants and, just that comfortable T-shirt. And even though you look a little daggy, you're just so comfortable.
No, I'm all about practicality. My gaming pants are tight lycra, and that's for wind efficiency. Look, you have 2 weeks, 2 literal weeks, until Persona 5 Royal is supposed to launch.
Yes.
So I imagine you don't want to extend what you're currently playing beyond that, because I'm sure that day one, pick up and play P5R is going to be your plan.
Yes.
So 2 weeks. What's a game that would take you 2 weeks to get through?
Well, see, because those are unknowns, saying the Outer Worlds or The Witcher, I feel like, well, they're also considerably lengthy. So because I don't know them and I am quite the completionist with those style of games, I think it might be too risky to say one of those right now.
Mm-hmm.
They've been on my radar forever. They'll probably always be in that rearview mirror of, when are you going to pick us up and play? I'm torn. What do you think I should play?
Give me some contenders.
Okay. Well, like I said earlier, both me and Corey Barlog have the Dragon Age Inquisition bug. I could go
Oh,
through.
is that going around as well? Should I be concerned?
No, this one's a good one to catch.
Okay, good.
Seriously, guys, catch Dragon Age.
Are you saying you love Dragon Age?
Yeah, that'll do. I mean, it doesn't quite
Less enthusiastic than I thought.
It just doesn't quite cover how I feel about the
Oh,
game.
it's an insufficient word. I was going to say you love games, you love Dragon Age, you're a gaming lover. Why would I ever be upset with you loving a game?
Because you get jealous.
I do. All right. I will allow it. I
Okay.
will allow you to play Dragon Age, but you have to
Thank
play
you.
it with at least one significant choice difference
Ooh.
than you've ever played before. Significant difference.
Okay.
So I'm talking about a character living and dying or a faction, happy or sad, with you that you've never done before. I want a big negative, not negative, big, what's the word I'm after? Differential split to how you
Okay.
normally play this game. Because I don't want angry motorcycle builders with big mustaches yelling at me that you're playing the same darn way again. Okay?
Okay. Well, then what are you going to do?
Well, that's just it. What am I going to do? I have multiple contenders.
What are your top three?
My top three are Death Stranding, Kingdom Hearts 3, Yakuza 6.
Okay.
And that's not including the secondary tier of games like what's the laughing?
I was going to say flip a coin. Then I'm like, wait a second, there's two. But if it landed on the edge, then that would be, could be the third
Poor
option.
game gets a bit of a raw deal. That's not including the secondary tier. Neo 2 just came out. I haven't yet to play through the first one properly. That's another 50-hour game. I mentioned Dark Souls 2 offhandedly, and now that's piqued my attention again. There is too much to play, too many games to play. So I need your help to help me decide.
If you played Yakuza 6 after playing 0, would you find that too jarring or like too much of the same thing?
Well, part of me has that feeling of, like, even though the last one I played is 0, which is a prequel, I
Yep.
still want to know what's next in this series. I
Yep.
got that desire to keep the train rolling. And I've only just picked up Yakuza 0 again after February finished. I've only been playing it for 2 weeks.
Okay, so you're not like sick, you haven't
I'm not
overdosed.
fatigued. I'm not Yakuza fatigued.
Good.
And Yakuza 6 is about half the length of Yakuza 0 as well.
Because there's also that risk with Kingdom Hearts 3. You've played a lot of that recently too. Not that game, obviously,
Not
but
3, yeah.
other Kingdom Hearts series.
Yes.
So part of me is sick of watching you play it. So I know if I'm sick of watching you play it, that means that you've probably got a little fatigue.
All right, hang on a second. Sick of me? That's a bit harsh on poor Kingdom Hearts.
Well,
It doesn't help that you're just walking on a story that's so complex that...
it's not just that, but like sometimes just the combat, and it has the jarring repetitive music. Like some of the music, I love some of the Kingdom Hearts music. Let me state that now. And we use some of it in our wedding. So to say, it's not that I hate their music. The fact that every time you go into combat, it's like the same track. And when you're not the one playing, it's more jarring to watch that than if you are playing. You know what I mean?
I believe this has pretty much eliminated Kingdom Hearts 3 from the equation.
Well, there you go. Now you've got two options. You
And
can
now we
flip
have
that coin.
to. Should we flip a coin?
Yes. So
Pulling my
what
wallet
what
out
are you
as we
going
speak.
to allocate to which? So, heads, Yakuza.
Okay.
Tails, Death Stranding.
All right, I'm just going to flip it and it's going to hit the floor
Oh, I could try
with
to
no
catch
info.
it.
You're going to catch it? Is whatever's facing up in your hands
Yes, that's the...
is the winner.
Yes.
Heads,
You just flip it carefully, though.
Yakuza.
It's dark in the booth.
tails, Death Stranding.
Yes.
This is it. This is locking me in.
Lock it in, Eddie. Ow.
Oh, you missed it. Oh, it's on the... It did land on the floor.
It's because it's dark. It's hard to see.
Should I do a blind redo?
Yes.
Okay. It's caught.
It is Tails.
Tails. Death Stranding.
How do you feel?
Hideo Kojima time.
Yes.
Oh, did we share the news? Well, that's not news. I don't want to make it official news. There's speculation. Sony Interactive Entertainment is going to buy the rights
Hopefully.
of two of my favourite franchises, Silent Hill, Metal Gear Solid, and let Kojima work on them under their supervision.
PT maybe back on the store.
That's only still just rumour at this point in time, but if PlayStation 5 has a Metal Gear Solid and a Silent Hill game that does the series' justices, I'll be happy clam.
And that would be some solid contenders as, exclusive games for the PlayStation 5. Could you
Yes.
imagine?
That's a good impact out of the gates.
Definitely.
Good stuff, good stuff. Okay, I'm going to play Death Stranding right now because I still have a few hours before I go to work and get infected with coronavirus. So I'm going to start Death Stranding right now.
Well, which Dragon Age should I go from the beginning and work my way through it?
Only if you do different things. I want the werewolves to win.
I've sided with werewolves before.
I want the Templars to eliminate the mages.
I've done that too.
Okay, I don't know what. Go for trophies. Whatever achievements, trophies you don't have, do that.
Okay.
Okay? You can start from the first one if you feel the need to, because I'm playing Death Stranding, Yakuza 0, Yakuza 6, Kingdom Hearts 3, probably back to back to back. So we've got some time to play some games. Let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, stay safe, stay healthy as much as you can, and stay gaming, stay indoors, and wash those darn hands. I've just handled a coin. What am I thinking?
Go spray some Glen 20 on that sucker.
I'm out of here. Chowski!
Sayonara.
Thanks for listening to the Gaming Lovers podcast.
Where's the hand sanitizer?
For more episodes or to watch some live stream gaming, visit thegaminglovers.com.